Ever seen a brand new truck on the highway that costs more than your house? You know the one I mean. All shiny chrome, fancy leather seats that are probably pricier than your rent. And a monthly payment that would make a loan officer cry. And here's the part that really puzzles me. The person driving it probably earns less than you do. So, what's the story here? How are everyday folks managing these insane car payments that seem to defy common sense? I'm Nick, and I spend way too much time digging into money matters and why people make the financial choices they do. If you've ever wondered how your neighbor affords that $70,000 pickup while complaining about gas prices, make sure to subscribe and give this video a like if it sheds light on this modern enigma. Now, before we break down the nitty-gritty of how this is even possible, let me set the scene for what we're actually dealing with. The average monthly payment for a new car in America has hit levels that would have seemed totally unbelievable just 10 years ago. We're talking about monthly bills that are higher than what many people pay for housing. Yet millions of Americans sign on the dotted line every single month, driving away in vehicles that cost more than the typical household earns in a year. But here's where it gets really intriguing. Most of these individuals aren't secretly loaded with cash. They're not tech moguls or beneficiaries of generous family fortunes. They're everyday people, teachers, nurses, mechanics, retail staff, office workers. Regular folks with regular jobs who've somehow found a way to make the math work. Or at least, that's what they believe. The reality is, there's a whole system in place designed to make these seemingly impossible payments feel achievable. Understanding this system isn't just about satisfying your curiosity, it's about protecting yourself from a financial decision that could impact your life for the next 7 to 10 years. Let's start with the most pressing question: what are we actually talking about financially? Because when I share the average car payment figures, most people think I'm exaggerating. The average new car payment has now surpassed $700 monthly. $700. And that's not for a luxury model or some flashy sports car. That's the typical payment for a standard new car bought by an average consumer. It gets even higher for trucks and SUVs, which have become the go-to choice for most American car buyers. These payments frequently go over $900 a month. And it's not uncommon to see payments exceeding $1,200. $1,200, every single month, for 6, 7, or even 8 years. That's a total repayment exceeding $80,000 over the loan's duration. And that's before considering insurance, upkeep, and fuel. Now, you might be thinking, Nick, perhaps people are just earning a lot more these days. Maybe wages have climbed enough to support these kinds of payments. If that's your thought, I've got some tough news: that's not what's happening at all. While the median household income has indeed risen, it hasn't increased nearly enough to justify these payment amounts based on traditional financial logic. So, how are people managing it? The answer lies in a mix of factors that have fundamentally changed how Americans approach vehicle purchases. And frankly, none of these shifts are good news for the people signing those loan contracts. First, let's discuss loan durations. Remember when a car loan was typically 3 years, maybe 4 if you really pushed it? Those days are long gone, like a forgotten flip phone. Today, car loans routinely stretch to 6, 7, or 8 years. Some lenders are even offering 10-year car loans, which honestly sounds like something out of a financial nightmare. The appeal is obvious: if you spread that $60,000 truck payment over 8 years instead of 4, the monthly cost drops significantly. Suddenly, that truck needing a $1,500 monthly payment over 4 years becomes manageable at $900 over 8 years. The monthly figure appears reasonable, which is precisely what buyers focus on. But here's what most people overlook when they're sitting at the dealership. By extending the loan term, they're not just reducing the monthly payment, they're drastically increasing the total cost of the vehicle. That $900 monthly payment over 8 years amounts to over $86,000, compared to about $72,000 if they had opted for a 4-year loan. That's an extra $14,000 simply for the convenience of a lower monthly payment. Even more concerning is that they'll be paying for that truck long after its value has plummeted. Cars lose value rapidly, especially in the initial years. By year 5 or 6 of that 8-year loan, they owe substantially more than the vehicle is actually worth. They become stuck in what's known as negative equity, unable to sell or trade the vehicle without writing a check to cover the difference. But stretched out loan terms are just the beginning of how people are making these payments work. The second major factor is the prevalence of 0% financing and other promotional interest rates. Walk into any dealership, and you'll see ads for 0% APR for qualified buyers. Sounds incredible, right? Like getting free money to buy a new truck. Here's the truth about those 0% offers that dealerships definitely don't want you to grasp. They're not actually free money. The cost of that financing is baked into the car's price. You're either paying the full sticker price for the car and getting 0% financing, or you're getting a discount on the car and paying the standard interest rate, but you can't have both. More importantly, those 0% offers typically come with strict eligibility requirements and shorter repayment periods. The individuals who actually qualify for 0% financing are usually the same ones who could afford to pay for the vehicle in cash anyway. For everyone else, the interest rates on these longer car loans can be quite high, especially if their credit history isn't stellar. Then there's the trade-in strategy, which has become increasingly vital in how people manage these substantial car payments. Here's how it typically unfolds. Someone buys a new car with a 6 or 7-year loan. After 3 or 4 years, they're tired of the car, or want something newer. But they still owe more on the loan than the car is currently worth. So, what do? They roll that negative equity into a new loan for an even pricier vehicle. This creates a cycle where people are perpetually paying for cars they no longer possess, while simultaneously taking on debt for new ones. Their outstanding loan balances continue to climb, even though they're making monthly payments. It's like a financial treadmill: the faster you run, the further behind you fall. Dealerships find this arrangement highly beneficial because it generates lifelong customers. Once someone is caught in the negative equity loop, they become a captive market for new vehicle purchases. They can't afford to escape the cycle because doing so would require them to pay thousands of dollars out of pocket just to settle their current loan. However, perhaps the most troubling trend is how commonplace these massive car payments have become. People who would never consider spending $1,200 a month on anything else somehow convince themselves it's perfectly reasonable for transportation. Think of it this way. If someone told you they were spending $1,200 a month on coffee, you'd likely try to intervene. If they admitted to dropping that much on clothing monthly, you'd suspect a serious shopping addiction. But somehow, when it comes to a car payment, we just nod and say, well, you need reliable transport. This normalization wasn't an accident. For decades, marketing has convinced Americans that their car is a reflection of their own identity. Your pickup isn't just a way to get around. It's a powerful statement about who you are. It suggests you're successful, dependable, and a hard worker. And if you're not driving something flashy, what does that say about you? The auto industry is incredibly skilled at leveraging these psychological buttons. They're not just selling vehicles anymore. They're selling aspirational lifestyles, dreams, and elevated social standing. That commercial featuring a tough truck conquering mountains isn't about transportation. It's selling you the idea that you're the adventurous type who tackles mountains. Even if your most extreme off-roading is pulling onto a grassy field at a local event. This emotional selling makes it much easier for people to justify payments that would otherwise seem completely unreasonable. When you're not just purchasing a vehicle, but buying into a certain image. That $900 monthly charge suddenly feels like an investment in yourself, not a financial blunder. But let's shift focus to the practical strategies people are actually using to make these payments fit into their monthly budgets, because even with extended loan terms and emotional justification, paying $700 to $1,200 is still a significant amount for most families. This is where things get genuinely inventive, and by inventive, I mean potentially damaging for long-term financial well-being. Many individuals are reconfiguring their entire financial lives around their car payments. They're treating it like a mortgage and adjusting all other expenses accordingly. I've seen people opt for smaller apartments or delay moving out on their own longer than planned, just to afford their dream truck payment. They subsist on instant noodles for lunch daily while commuting to work in a car worth more than some houses. They forego vacations, dine out less, and postpone other major purchases, all to support a car payment that consumes 25 to 30% of their net income. Some are taking on second jobs solely to manage their vehicle expenses. They might drive for ride-sharing services or deliver food on weekends, using their expensive truck to generate the very income needed to pay for that same expensive vehicle. It's a peculiar form of automotive servitude where your car becomes both your overlord and your lifeline. Others are tapping into retirement funds or taking out loans against their 401(k)s for down payments or repair costs. They're essentially borrowing from their future selves to fund their current vehicle aspirations, and since most people aren't great at calculating the true cost of early retirement withdrawals, they don't realize they're potentially sacrificing hundreds of thousands in future wealth for a truck that will be worth next to nothing in a decade. Then there's the credit card juggling act that's become increasingly common. People put maintenance, repairs, insurance, and fuel expenses on credit cards to free up cash for their monthly car payments. They're essentially using high-interest debt to cover their transportation costs, which is akin to using a flamethrower to light a match. It technically works, but it's likely not the smartest strategy. The most alarming trend I've observed is people taking out personal loans or home equity loans to cover down payments or the negative equity from previous vehicles. They're using their homes as collateral to purchase cars, fundamentally misunderstanding the purpose of both assets. Your house should be an asset that appreciates over time. Your car should be a tool for efficient travel from point A to point B. When you start using your home to fund your car habit, you've got the priorities backward. But here's where the situation gets even more interesting. Many of the people making these extreme sacrifices for their car payments aren't just doing it for one vehicle. They're doing it for multiple vehicles. The average American household now owns more vehicles than licensed drivers, which is statistically impressive and financially concerning. It's not unusual to find families with 2 or 3 car payments happening simultaneously. Dad has his work truck, mom has her SUV for the kids. And perhaps there's a third vehicle for the teenager or for weekend excursions. Suddenly, we're talking about combined car payments that are greater than what most people pay for housing. These families have essentially created their own personal auto financing entities. Except instead of earning money, they're losing it every month. They're managing multiple depreciation schedules, insurance policies, maintenance plans, and loan agreements. It's like running a small business, but one that loses money daily and whose inventory loses value over time. The psychological impact of managing multiple car payments is fascinating and unsettling. People become adept at juggling payment dates and minimum balances, but they lose perspective on the bigger picture. They'll celebrate paying off one car loan while taking on two new ones simultaneously. They see success in their ability to keep all the balls in the air, rather than questioning if they should be juggling at all. And then there's the insurance component that most people completely overlook when assessing affordability. Insuring a $60,000 truck costs significantly more than insuring a $20,000 sedan. Add comprehensive, collision, gap insurance, and all the other recommended protections for expensive vehicles. And you're looking at insurance premiums that can easily top $200 a month. For families with multiple high-value vehicles, insurance costs can approach or exceed $500 monthly. That's $6,000 annually just for the legal right to drive their depreciating assets on public roads. Many people focus so intensely on negotiating the monthly payment that they forget to factor in ongoing insurance expenses until they're at the insurance agent's office getting a harsh reality check. Maintenance costs are another surprise that catches many people off guard. Modern vehicles, especially trucks and SUVs, are highly complex with advanced technology, sophisticated emission systems, and premium parts. When something breaks, and it inevitably will, the repair bills can be astronomical. A basic brake job on a modern truck can easily cost $800 to $1,200. Transmission issues can run $5,000 or more. And if you're unfortunate enough to need major engine work, you could be facing repair bills exceeding $10,000. Many individuals making substantial car payments have no emergency savings whatsoever for these unavoidable repairs, meaning they likely end up putting major maintenance on credit cards or taking out more loans. This creates a vicious cycle where the car payment that was intended to be manageable becomes the trigger for a debt spiral that can take years to recover from. You'll see people with immaculate $70,000 trucks sitting in their driveways while they frantically search their couch for gas money. It's like owning a Rolex while living on ramen. Impressive on the surface, but completely missing the point. The fuel expenses alone for these large vehicles can rival what people used to pay for entire car payments just a decade ago. When you're driving a truck that gets 15 miles per gallon in real-world conditions, and gas prices are between $3 and $5 per gallon, you're looking at fuel costs that can easily surpass $400 per month for someone with a typical commute. Add in an occasional road trip or weekend getaway, and that number increases even more. But here's where the math becomes truly fascinating, and by fascinating, I mean absolutely alarming. From a financial planning standpoint, let's examine a common scenario and crunch the real numbers that most people neglect to calculate. Imagine someone purchases a $55,000 truck with a 7-year loan at 6% interest. The monthly payment comes out to around $800, which feels manageable compared to the $1,200 payment they'd face with a shorter loan term. Over the entire loan period, they'll pay approximately $67,000 in total. Add insurance at $250 per month, and that's another $21,000 over 7 years. Factor in fuel costs of $350 monthly, and we're talking about an additional $29,000. Maintenance end.